are moments in life that, no matter how much time passes, continue to haunt the edges of our thoughts. This is one of those moments. 3 years ago, in what seemed like an ordinary night, a young woman unknowingly came face to face with something or someone far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. She had always been a night owl, often taking late-night walks to clear her mind. That night, around 3:30 a.m., she stepped out of her apartment and wandered towards a park just 2 blocks away. It wasn't unusual for her. The neighborhood was safe, the streets familiar. However, looking back, she knew that walking alone at such an hour had been a mistake that nearly cost her more than she could comprehend. The park was quiet, surrounded by tall bushes that swayed gently in the night breeze. A street ran adjacent to it, and beyond the street lay a vast, empty field. As she neared the park, something caught her eye. A bald man, clad in a long plastic jacket and blue surgical gloves, was carrying large, black, plastic-wrapped bundles across the street from the park to the field. His movements were deliberate, methodical, as if he was disposing of something he didn't want found. Curiosity held her in place. She watched as he retrieved another bundle, but the moment he noticed her, his demeanor changed. He froze, staring at her for a long, unsettling moment before darting into the bushes, stuffing the plastic-wrapped bundles inside. Then, eerily still, he crouched, watching her. A deep, instinctual fear crept into her chest. Without hesitation, she turned and began walking home, forcing herself to appear calm. But when she glanced back, her blood ran cold. His bald head was peeking from the bushes, his gaze locked onto her. Her pace quickened. A block away, she risked another glance, and there he was again. This time, he was sprinting across the street, ducking behind a large tree. Only his head was visible, peering from the side, watching, stalking. Panic threatened to take over, but she knew she couldn't run. She had once heard that if a predator senses fear, they become emboldened, so she kept walking, her heartbeat hammering against her ribs, every fiber of her being screaming at her to flee. When she reached her house, she rushed inside, locking both the front and back doors before forcing herself to breathe. The next day, under the warmth of the sun and the safety of other park-goers, she returned to where the man had hidden the bags. She checked the bushes, expecting to find something, anything, but there was nothing. No bags, no sign that he had ever been there. It was as if the night before had been a terrible dream. That evening, she tried to put the incident behind her. She settled on the couch, watching a movie, determined to move on. But as she got up to grab a glass of water, a chilling sense of unease crept over her. Her kitchen window, which overlooked the backyard, was dark, reflecting only the faint glow of the television. She had always kept the kitchen lights off at night, so she could see out without being seen, and that was when she saw him. Standing in the middle of her backyard, motionless, was the same bald man, her breath caught in her throat. Even in the dim light, she could make out his pale head, his unblinking stare, fixed on her house. He had followed her home. He had been watching. A surge of fear turned to anger. Without thinking, she cracked open the window and yelled, "Hey!" The man jerked and bolted, sprinting through her yard and out the open gate. She slammed the window shut, heart racing, unable to shake the feeling that he had wanted her to see him, that he had wanted her to know he was still there. After that night, she never saw him again. But the fear never truly left. It lingered in the shadows, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the paranoia of being watched. She had no idea what he had been doing that night, or what his intentions were, and part of her never wanted to know. Years passed, and life continued. Then, one evening, while scrolling through the news, a headline stopped her cold. Serial killer arrested after remains found buried in local field. Her stomach clenched as she clicked on the article. The details were horrifying. Multiple victims, all wrapped in black plastic, discovered in a field not far from where she had seen the man that night. She felt her breath leave her lungs as her eyes landed on the mugshot. It was him, the bald head, the same cold, piercing stare. Chills crawled over her skin as reality settled in. That night, she had been just steps away from a killer. By pure luck, she had escaped. Had she confronted him, had she not walked away, she might have ended up as another one of his victims. The thought haunted her, a dark reminder that danger isn't always obvious, and sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding under the bed, but the ones lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting, just out of sight. Hit subscribe and don't dare miss what's coming next. Or the next scream you hear might be your own.